Hello boardwalkers, and welcome back to Country Boardwalk Studios. In today's non-sponsored video, I thought I would share with you guys my trying out this Arches Watercolor Cold-Pressed 300 GM2 or 140 pound 100% pure cotton, 23 centimeter by 31 centimeter or a 9-inch by 12-inch block of watercolor paper. I've actually had this Arches Cold-Pressed Watercolor Block, and as you can see, it's in a plastic protective covering. I've had this for 2 years, and my greatest fear has been whether or not I am good enough to paint with what is considered the standard watercolor paper for professional grade artists. Oh, this is fancy because it comes with a quality claim number. Alright, and as you see, it's got this, you can see it's black on all 4 sides except for this little section here, and that's because that's where you take and separate your papers. But getting back to the purpose of this video, I've won this block along with some paint and brushes, and my fear has always been, since I've only been painting for about, it'll be 5 years this November, October or November of 2025, it will be, I will have been painting for 5 years. And my biggest fear has always been whether, and what I'm doing is I'm just sliding this right under this opening here and just running this around the edge in one motion, do not saw it, to remove this top protective sheet. This is just a black sheet of watercolor paper, and I can use that later with like my metallic watercolors, but you just take a palette knife or a butter knife, even if you don't have a palette knife, to remove that top protective layer. But as you can see, it's gummed on all 4 sides, except for this area where you can get in to remove it. But this protects your paper and keeps you from having to stretch your paper. But I've always, with this being really expensive paper or the top quality standard paper that watercolor artists use, I have always been worried. Let me move this black sheet of paper up out of the way, along with the cover of my Meeden watercolor palette here. And this has got my MaimeriBlu, Daniel Smith, and Winsor Newton colors in it, professional colors, along with my Winsor Newton Cotman metallic colors. But I've always been afraid, am I good enough to use the big quality professional grade paper? I've always used the Canson XL watercolor paper, the wire bound paper, and I used that because it was the cheapest paper that I could afford at the time, And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do watercolor or painting. I took up painting and watercolor during COVID when everybody was, you know, having to stay put. So I'm wanting to test this out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wet a corner here. I mean, I have upgraded from Canson XL watercolor paper to the Hanamula cotton paper. I've used the Strathmore 500 series, 400 and 500 series watercolor papers, and that. But I've never used this paper even though I want it, because this block of 20 sheets usually runs about $25 or $30 here in the US. And that's if I buy it online at Amazon. Now my local art store, it's probably a little bit more. Ooh. Now this is cold press. This does take water nicely. And it does stay wet a lot longer, even in this dry heat temperature that I have in Mississippi, the hot and humid. So last year I made the jump to my professional grade watercolors, and I'll link that video of me doing that. But I never made the jump to this quality standard paper. I never made the jump to cotton, using 100% cotton papers, until last fall when I decided to do the Hanamula papers. So I'm curious to see. Oh, that is nice. See, because now if I had put that amount of paint on my Canson watercolors or my Hanamula paper, it would be a lot thicker, and that is absorbing into my paper really well compared to what I have done before. Now that is just a wet and wet flat wash. Let me try some wet on dry techniques. But I've always, you know, been worried, am I good enough to use this quality paper? Now I have always heard that yes, your quality of art supplies and your quality of your paints and your brushes and your papers does make a huge difference. But if you really can't afford that, I don't know that you want to start out with that. I mean, yes, it would make a huge difference, but it was always my personal choice that I try with the Canson watercolor paper, which is a pulp paper. It's not 100% cotton paper. It's a pulp paper. Oh, that does stay wet a good long time. Look at that. Wow. I mean, this right here is damp. It's still damp. It's not completely dry. See, because that is still moving. And it's been a while since I've, you know, put that blue on it. Normally, y'all have seen in the past videos, my paper is usually dry, and this color does not move like this. So my goodness, this is a whole different learning curve and a whole lot of difference compared to the I'm not going to say cheaper paper, but the more budget friendly papers, 100% cotton papers. Let's see if I can do a graduated wash here, how that would work. Or a blended wash. Oh my, this is just a totally new experience. Okay, so your paper does make a huge difference in how your paint spreads. And that does have a nice soft edge. I may be making another change, another growth change in my art. I may be going to the more expensive watercolor paper. See, because that is just still wet, and that is still moving the paint. That is still damp. And normally by now, if I'm using a 100% cotton paper like the Etch-a-Sketch books or the Honolulu papers or the Canson XL paper, my paper is usually already dry by now. This is still damp. This, you can see, still has a sheen on it. This is still damp because you can see the buckle in it. And that's why it's in a block, is because but yes, it's going to buckle, but it's going to end up going back straight. So this is just really interesting to see happen. This dry brush technique. Let me try that. If I can hold my brush, find out how to hold my brush. Oh, look at that. That is nice. My goodness. Okay, folks. I'm not a huge fan of buying the best quality stuff when you start out. I do still believe that you need to buy the best quality paint and brushes that you can afford. And if you're just starting out, yes, student grade is still awesome. Canson XL is still awesome. So is the Strathmore papers and the Honolulu 100% cotton papers. But I definitely see and understand why Arches is considered one of the standard papers for watercolor painting. I think I'm going to let this dry, and we'll come back and I am going to do an actual painting on this other half of the paper here to really test this paper out. So let me take a break and we'll come back in a few minutes and I'll set up a drawing for this other half of the paper. CB Mac here. In today's non-sponsored video, could I ask you if you're enjoying the content? Could you please click the subscribe button over here? I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers this year. Also, please post a comment down below. Don't forget to click that thumbs up like button. Share this video with someone who you think might enjoy the video. And then don't forget to click that bell icon so you get upcoming notifications of when my next new videos are. It makes a huge difference to the growth and the support of my channel. And to my subscribers that I've already joined, I do appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get back to our video. All right, boardwalkers, I've let this dry completely, and you can see how it looks, and it's still lighter. And you can see where we had the soft edges and the hard edges from it being wet the whole time we were doing those techniques on trying out this Arches paper for the first time. I also went ahead and drew my sketch for my painting that we're going to do for my practice painting, because what I would like to do is reveal with you guys the poll that we that I had you guys help me decide what our next series of paintings were going to be. The choices were farm life and scenery, birds, flowers and plants, or the fourth choice was other. Tell me what you wanted me to do if it was different from those three choices. And in the poll results, we had birds with 33%, flowers and plants with 0, other was 0, and our winner is going to be farm life and scenery, which kind of makes sense because I do like doing a lot of farm scenery paintings with you guys. So I've drawn a corn stalk on here, painting here of this corn stalk. I'm going to wet my background a little bit, and we're going to see how this works again. But I am really looking forward to doing some farm scenery paintings for you guys. I'd been thinking about doing that since we do live out in the country and we do have a family farm. But I wanted to make sure that it was going to be something that you guys were interested in watching. Because not everybody likes farm scenery. I mean, yes, there's a lot of animals, farm animals and such. And that could tie in with an animal painting. But I'm going to try and do some various things that are going on here in the farm. Now I'm going to hold this up so I can see in the light whether I've got enough water on my paper to satisfy what I'm wanting done here with this background to flow right. I've missed some spots. So, got my background wet really nice, and I'm going to go in with some Jane's Gray on this background. My paper is still staying really nice and wet, which I am loving with this new paper, especially in these hot, humid summer days here in Mississippi. So I've been wondering if a more expensive paper would be what I would have to go with to be able to paint like I want. And as I said earlier, I really wasn't sure if I was up with my skills to be able to paint on this better quality paper, because it is more expensive and it is considered the standard. And I don't know why I felt like you have to have a certain set of skills to be able to use this paper. So, I mean, yes, you do have to have some skills, but like I said, I wouldn't use this if I was first beginning with watercolor painting. So, after 5 years, I think I'm fairly experienced enough to be able to practice and try on this paper. And at some point, you really do have to just put in the practice, which is the main part. If you can comfortably afford getting the paper, then you should be able to comfortably use your paper. I don't want to become one of those artists that I buy myself good stuff and then feel like, oh no, it's too precious for me to use now. That imposter syndrome that everybody that I've heard talk about. I understand it now a little bit more. All right, that is, where's my paper towel? All right, that's looking pretty good. There's some spots that are a little splotchy, but we're okay with that. somewhat of an outline. Oop, I missed a section. I missed a section. Oop, and I got too far down there. Let's see how well this is at lifting out. Yeah, it's pretty good. Alright. Okay. Now I can find me some green or some yellow. Let me go in here with some of this primary yellow. And I'm just going to paint over my sections because we can add a green or a blue to it. My lights are flickering. I apologize for the flash. Alright. Now I go in here with some ultramarine. Starting to get a little green. Alright, now I'm going to go in, since I have the darker blue for the shadow, I can go in with some sap green. I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of sap green and primary yellow and punch up some of these yellowy greens. some of these background places, edges. Okay, I'm sorry, my battery stopped on us and I had to stop midway, so my paper is slightly damp or almost dry, and we were in the middle of trying to get this finished up. So let me get some yellow, my 50-50 mix of yellow and green on here, sap green, and we just got to hit some of these sections a little bit more, clean up some edges. Now I'm going to take some ultramarine with some primary yellow and make a little bit darker green again, just a hair darker. I love how I can be rough on this paper with doing my scrubbing techniques to lift. It definitely holds up to scrubbing. And that is one technique that I really like using, is scrubbing and lifting out. So finding a paper that could handle that. And I'm just keeping this to a very limited palette on my corn. Some ultramarine blue and some primary yellow and some sap green, just alternating between those colors. I just need to get some Naples yellow to warm up this yellow a little bit. These tassels on the end. On my corn. Okay, I think that pretty much gets it. Just a real quick, simple little play around. Not a masterpiece, but I am definitely loving how this Arches watercolor paper is. And I'm not so intimidated anymore by using it. So I think I will be upgrading and trying more of this. I do have 20 sheets in this 9 by 12 inch, so I may be using this one a little bit more and buying some more. I'm still going to be using the Hanamola 100% cotton paper, and I'm still going to be using my Etchers square sketchbooks and my Strathmore 400 and 500 series papers. And of course I'll still be using some practice pieces for the Canson XL. All of those I really do like as papers to use. I will put links for all those kinds of papers, and of course my paint palette that I use and the brushes. Next week I will be starting on a farm life scenery painting. I think what I'm going to try and do is my son is doing a rebuilding of a cattle trailer. So I think we might do a cattle trailer, maybe a tractor farm scene for our next series, our next painting next week. If you have any questions or comments that you feel you want to ask me, post those down below. And Boardwalkers, I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Goodbye for now.